In 1942, a drop forge in Brunswick, Melbourne started making spanners at a time when Australia couldn't get them from overseas. 54 years later, the spanners were coming from Taiwan. The badge is still on tool shelves in this country. It still sounds like it always did, and nothing on the box, the shelf label or the receipt tells you where the company went. That's the one I'm going to start with, and it runs about 5 minutes. It's the older story, and that brand changed hands a long time ago. The second one only stopped being Australian in 2013. It's sold exclusively through Bunnings, and there's a fair chance it's in your shed right now. 2 brands, both with dates I can show you. Then a third part one have to be honest about, and it's the part that's actually useful in the shop. Let's start in Brunswick. Sidchrome was founded in 1942 by Royston Siddons. It came out of a company called Siddons Drop Forgings, and the reason it existed at all is that the supply lines were cut. Drop forging is worth picturing because it explains what kind of company this was. You heat a billet of steel until it's soft, you drop a hammer on it into a shaped die, and the steel flows into the shape of the tool. You set that up because you intend to be there for 30 years. That is about as Australian an origin story as a tool brand can have. Not a marketing department deciding the country liked the idea. An actual shortage and an actual forge in an actual suburb of Melbourne. For decades, that's what Sidchrome was. Now watch the sequence, because it happens in stages, and they get collapsed into one. Step 1. In 1991, Sidchrome was bought by Stanley Tools. An acquisition on its own changes nothing you can see. The name on the spanner is the same, the shelf is the same, and nobody sends you a letter. A change of owner is a change on a share register. Step 2, and this is the one I can't date, so I'm not going to pretend I can place it exactly. At some point the Australian factory closed and local manufacturing ended. Whether that finished before the next date, or because of it, I can't tell you. What I can tell you is what ends with it. The die shop, the hammers, the people who knew which steel behaved how, that capability doesn't get transferred, it gets stopped. Step 3. In 1996, Stanley moved the tool making to Taiwan. So the spanners that existed because Australia couldn't import them were, 54 years later, being made overseas and imported. Today, Sidchrome sits inside Stanley Black & Decker, the same corporation as DeWalt. Same parent, same balance sheet. That's the first thing I promised you at the end of the warranty video. I told you 2 of the brands I ranked against each other were owned by the same company. If you saw the first video on this channel, you'll go to Tektronix first. Ryobi, Milwaukee, and AEG all run out of Tektronix, and all 3 are in that ranking. But I said it in that video. Tektronix doesn't own the Ryobi name, and AEG is built under license. Of the 3, the one it bought outright is Milwaukee, and one badge on its own isn't a pair. Run is not the same word as own. The one I meant is this one. Sidchrome and DeWalt. Same corporation, outright, both of them. The second thing I promised was a brand that stopped being Australian in 2013. That one's still coming. This is Toolwatch Australia. Australian terms, Australian stock, Australian pricing, and nothing else. Subscribe and you'll get the rest of these. But first, there's a detail in the Sidchrome warranty that tells you where the badge now sits in that family. Stanley Australia covers its products for the term of the useful life of the product. That's their wording, not mine. It's a strong promise. Sidchrome is listed as an exception to it, 2 years. Think about what a useful life warranty means on a hand tool. A spanner has no motor, no battery, no seals, and no electronics. Barring abuse, it does not wear out. That's why useful life cover gets offered on tools like this in the first place. The company is fairly confident it will rarely be claimed, which makes the exception strange. 2 years is not a cautious number on a steel spanner. It's the kind of term you'd write for something that wears out. And one more thing about that 2 years. If you saw the warranty video, you already have the number. You saw it on screen, and you saw where it landed when I lined the brands up. What a list can't show you is how old the number is. A badge from 1942 can be carrying a term that was written last year, and nothing on the shelf tells you which one you're looking at. Hold on to that number. At the end, I'll put it next to the one the second brand carries on the cheap end of the Bunnings shelf, because the badge you'd expect to win is the one that loses. Now the second brand. This is that one. And here's the date. Ozito sits on the Bunnings shelf, and it is one of the cheapest ways onto a battery platform in this country. If you've bought a cordless tool here in the last decade, it may well be this one, because Bunnings is everywhere and the entry price is low. Ozito was an Australian company, a local supplier, built around the Bunnings shelf. In 2013, it was bought by Einhell Germany AG, which is worth stopping on, because in the warranty video I called Ozito a Bunnings house brand. That's how everybody says it, including me. A house brand is a brand the shop owns. This one has been owned in Germany since 2013. The shorthand is part of why it never stuck. Einhell was founded in 1964 in Landau an der Isar in Bavaria, and here's the part that makes it concrete rather than corporate. The Ozito Power Exchange battery platform, not a licensing deal. The batteries are electrically and mechanically identical. That platform runs past 300 tools worldwide. The Australian shelf is a slice of that catalogue, not the whole of it, but the slice is fed by it, which is what makes the battery worth more than the tool. Nobody hid any of this. It was a normal acquisition, reported at the time, and I've put the date on this channel before. More than a decade later, and nothing at the point of sale tells you. Now, the third part. It's the one you'll actually use in the shop, and it exists because of something that happened to me while I was making this. This part was supposed to be the good news, the brands that are still ours, and I could not verify current corporate ownership for the two I most wanted to put in it, Sidchrome and Trojan. I could not get to a primary source I trust for either, and I am not going to tell you a company is Australian-owned because it feels like it should be. That is exactly the kind of claim that gets repeated for years because nobody checked the first time. But the reason I couldn't verify those two is the same reason you can't, standing in the aisle. So here's the method, and the first part of it is the bit you'll actually use. There are three phrases that get used to make a product sound local in this country. They look interchangeable. They mean completely different things. Australian-owned. That's about the share register. It says who receives the profit. It says nothing about where anything is made. Australian designed. That's about a drawing office. The design work happened here. The manufacturing can be anywhere on Earth, and usually is. Made in Australia. That's the only one of the three about a factory. It's also the only one with a legal test behind it, and that test is the one the ACCC enforces. Ozito is the test case. Australian name, Australian shelf, German owner since 2013. Nothing there is a lie. The name is what does the work, and a name is not one of the three phrases. A name has no test behind it at all. So when something about a product makes you feel like you're supporting a local business, find out which of those three it actually claims, if it claims any of them at all. Often the only Australian thing in front of you is the name. And if you want to go further than the box, know what counts as a source. A company registration or an annual report is a source. An About Us page is not. It's written by marketing, and that's why those two brands are still open. If you know who owns Sidchrome or Trojan today and you have a document, put it in the comments and I'll do a follow-up with the receipts. Right. The two numbers I said I'd put together, and the badge I still can't close. Sidchrome. Founded in Brunswick in 1942. 2 years. Ozito. Owned in Germany since 2013. On Power Exchange, 5 years, replacement and not repair. And their own page says registration is not required to get it. And Trojan, on the Bunnings shelf. You break it, they replace it, no questions asked. the strongest promise of the three. And I called that one a house brand too, in the warranty video, which by the test I just gave you, means I told you a shop owned it. I don't have a document that says who owns Trojan. That makes it the only badge in this lineup I can't close. So the badge with a Melbourne forge behind it has the shortest cover of the three, and the badge owned in Bavaria carries 5 years, with no form at all. Stanley Australia wrote the two about a name Stanley Tools bought in 1991. Whatever else that number is, it can't be older than that purchase, which puts at least 49 years between the badge and the term. The 5 is on Aussie's own warranty page. Neither number came with the badge. That 2 years is not a 1942 decision. It's an exception, written after the badge changed hands, and written for a spanner that hasn't been made in this country for decades. That badge has the oldest date in this video. The number behind it is the smallest. Companies get bought. That's what companies do. What this video is about is the gap between what a badge suggests and what a badge is. A name built here in 1942 carries something with it, and that something keeps working long after the building it came from is gone. So the practical version is short. Buy the tool, not the flag. Read the warranty, because that's where ownership actually shows up in your life. And if the local story is part of why you're reaching for it, check which of those 3 phrases is on the box. I'm not going to read company registrations at you. The full ownership map is in a free PDF with every Australian warranty term brand by brand, and the parent company behind every badge I could verify to a primary source, with the 2 I couldn't marked as still open. It's called the Aussie Tool Buyer's Bible. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments. And there's this. The company that existed because Australia couldn't import ended up an import. Nobody announced that. It happened slowly, and the only reason we noticed is that somebody went and looked at the dates. So here's my question, and I actually want the answer. Which brand did you assume was Australian? Not the ones I covered, the one you thought of while watching this and went quiet for a second. And there's one more thing about batteries in this country. There are 4 systems worth buying into, and on one of them there's a battery that fits perfectly, works perfectly, and cancels your warranty the moment you click it in. That's the next video.